Picture a bomber, longer than a football field, that could fly on the ragged edge of space, 3 times faster than a rifle bullet. A weapon so fast it could outrun any missile fired at it, and so high it was practically invisible. This was the dream of the XB-70 Valkyrie, America's Mach 3 nuclear bomber. It was a machine that looked like it flew straight out of the future, a titanium titan destined to make every other bomber on Earth obsolete. For a time, it was the absolute pinnacle of 1960s aerospace ambition, a symbol of a nation determined to hold the ultimate high ground. But this magnificent aircraft, forged in the hottest fires of the Cold War, would never actually see service. Its story is one of incredible innovation, but it ends not with a bang, but with a fiery, tragic collision high over the California desert. This is the story of the rise and spectacular fall of the XB-70 Valkyrie. In the late 1950s, the Cold War had become a high-stakes game of technological chess, where every new weapon forced a countermove. The backbone of America's nuclear deterrent was still its fleet of subsonic B-52 Stratofortress bombers, reliable, long-ranged, and terrifying in their destructive potential. But the assumptions that had protected these aircraft since the early days of the jet age were rapidly collapsing. That reality became impossible to ignore in May 1960, when a high-flying U-2 reconnaissance aircraft was shot down deep inside Soviet territory by an S-75 Dvina surface-to-air missile. The message was clear and deeply unsettling. Altitude alone was no longer enough. Soviet air defenses were evolving faster than expected, with radar-guided SAM networks expanding across the USSR. For the first time, American planners had to confront the fact that even aircraft flying at the edge of space could be hunted and destroyed. Missiles were only part of the threat. Soviet interceptor aircraft were also improving, equipped with increasingly powerful radars and long-range air-to-air missiles designed specifically to target high-altitude bombers. Inside the U.S. Air Force, a quiet but intense debate emerged. Some argued that the future lay in low-level penetration, slipping beneath radar coverage. Others believed the answer was the opposite: climb higher, fly faster, and stay untouchable through sheer performance. The XB-70 Valkyrie was born from this second philosophy. The Air Force envisioned a bomber that could tear through Soviet airspace at unimaginable speed, deliver its nuclear payload, and escape before defenses could react. The requirement was breathtaking: sustained flight at Mach 3, above 70,000 feet. Speed itself would be the aircraft's armor. A design competition soon followed, and the contract went to North American Aviation, the company behind the legendary P-51 Mustang and F-86 Sabre. Their radical proposal would become the B-70 Valkyrie, a final, defiant bet that technology could stay one step ahead of the missile age. Building an aircraft to fly at 2,000 miles per hour wasn't just an engineering problem. It was a battle against physics. At Mach 3, air friction would heat the Valkyrie's skin to temperatures that would melt conventional aluminum. So the first problem was heat. The solution had to be exotic. The XB-70 wasn't built from aluminum, but from a honeycomb sandwich of stainless steel panels and a great deal of titanium alloy in the hottest areas. This provided immense strength and heat resistance, but made fabrication a nightmare, requiring entirely new manufacturing techniques. But the real genius of the Valkyrie was its shape. North American's engineers dug up old research on an idea called compression lift. The concept was to turn the plane's own shockwave into an advantage. At supersonic speeds, the XB-70's sharp nose and huge engine intake would create a powerful shockwave. The plane's enormous delta wing was designed to literally ride on top of this high-pressure wave, essentially surfing its own sonic boom. This incredible technique, which provided up to 5% of the total lift, gave the aircraft a massive boost in efficiency and made sustained Mach 3 flight a reality. To make this work and keep the plane stable at such insane speeds, the engineers added another futuristic feature. The outer sections of the wings were hinged. For takeoff and slower subsonic flight, the wings stayed flat. But as the Valkyrie accelerated past the sound barrier, these massive wingtips would droop downwards, angling as much as 65 degrees. This helped trap that high-pressure shockwave under the wings, increasing lift, and also acting like giant vertical stabilizers to keep the massive aircraft flying true. This thing was a true giant, measuring nearly 190 feet long. To feed its 6 massive General Electric YJ93 turbojet engines, it carried over 300,000 pounds of specialized jet fuel. The cockpit was straight out of the future, too. For high-speed flight, a ramp would raise in front of the windscreen to make the nose more streamlined. To land, it would lower to give the pilots a clear view. And in a chilling testament to the dangers they faced, the pilots didn't have normal ejection seats. They had individual escape capsules, each one a self-contained pressurized pod designed to rocket them away from the aircraft in an emergency. This wasn't just a plane, it was a monument to American ingenuity. On September 21, 1964, the first prototype, Air Vehicle 1, or AV-1, rolled onto the runway at Palmdale, California. Painted in a brilliant, almost ghostly white to help reflect heat, it looked more like a spaceship than a bomber. Its first flight to Edwards Air Force Base was a little tense. An engine had to be shut down, and a landing gear issue forced a slow approach. As it landed, the main tires locked up, burst, and caught fire. It was a dramatic start, but the Valkyrie had finally flown. The test program pushed forward, carefully expanding the envelope. Finally, on October 14, 1965, AV-1 did what it was built to do. It flew faster than Mach 3 for the first time. A second, improved prototype, AV-2, soon joined the program, built to be even more stable at high speeds. On May 19, 1966, AV-2 showed the world the design's true potential, holding a speed of Mach 3 for over 30 minutes straight. The Valkyrie was a specter in the Mojave sky, a white ghost that streaked across the heavens at speeds and altitudes no aircraft its size had ever reached before. For a brief, shining moment, the dream was real. The technology actually worked, but the world had already moved on. But by the time the Valkyrie was proving its incredible capabilities, its original mission was already obsolete. The rise of intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs, offered a cheaper, faster, and less vulnerable way to deliver nuclear warheads. The high-altitude bomber was starting to look like a relic, and the Kennedy administration agreed. The order for a full fleet of B-70s was canceled. The program was redesignated as a research project, with the 2 prototypes flying for the Air Force and NASA to explore the very frontiers of high-speed flight. Then came the morning of June 8, 1966. The second prototype, AV-2, took off for what was meant to be a routine test flight, followed by a publicity event. General Electric, the maker of the Valkyrie's powerful engines, had arranged a photo shoot. They wanted a picture of their products in action, so they gathered 4 other aircraft powered by GE engines for a formation flight with the majestic XB-70. In the Valkyrie's command pilot seat was North American's chief test pilot, Al White. In the co-pilot seat was Major Carl Cross, on his very first flight in the XB-70. Flying a nimble F-104 starfighter was one of NASA's top pilots, Joe Walker, a legendary test pilot and astronaut who had flown the X-15 rocket plane to the edge of space. For nearly an hour, the 5 aircraft flew in a tight, carefully choreographed formation over the desert as a nearby Learjet captured the stunning images. Then, it was over. The planes began to break formation. Walker's F-104 was positioned just off the Valkyrie's right wingtip. The massive XB-70, with its wingtips drooped down, generated powerful, invisible vortices of turbulent air, literal tornadoes spinning off its wings. It's believed the much smaller F-104 was suddenly sucked into one of these vortices. The fighter jet was pulled violently inward, rolling uncontrollably over the Valkyrie's wing. The F-104's tail clipped the Valkyrie's drooping wingtip, and then the fighter cartwheeled across the bomber's back, shearing off both of its twin vertical tails before exploding in a ball of fire. Joe Walker was killed instantly. For 16 agonizing seconds, the crippled Valkyrie flew straight and level. In the cockpit, Al White felt a loud thump, but had no idea what had just happened. Then, the giant bomber, its directional stability completely gone, entered a violent, unrecoverable flat spin. Al White desperately tried to get into his escape capsule, but the intense G-forces of the spin pinned his arm, preventing the clamshell doors from closing. He couldn't reach his co-pilot, Carl Cross. After a frantic struggle, White managed to free his arm and eject his capsule from the tumbling wreckage just seconds before impact. Major Carl Cross, likely incapacitated by the violent spin, was unable to escape and died in the crash. The dream had become a nightmare. The crash was a devastating blow. The investigation that followed placed the blame on the risky decision to allow a tight formation flight for what was essentially a marketing campaign. With one of only 2 prototypes destroyed and its strategic mission long gone, the Valkyrie's fate was sealed. The sole surviving aircraft, AV-1, continued to fly for NASA, gathering valuable data on sonic booms and high-speed flight dynamics. This research would prove useful for later projects, including the American Supersonic Transport, or SST, another ambitious aircraft that would also, ironically, be cancelled. The information on high-temperature structures, stability, and engine performance would influence aircraft design for decades. Finally, on February 4, 1969, the lone Valkyrie made its 83rd and final flight. It flew subsonically from Edwards Air Force Base in California to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. There, it was taxied into the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force, where its incredible journey came to an end. Today, the XB-70 Valkyrie sits in silent majesty in that museum, a breathtaking sight that still looks like it belongs in the future. It's a monument to an era of unbridled ambition, a time when engineers with slide rules dared to build a bomber that could outrun the sun. So, was it a failure? As a weapon of war, yes. It was a machine designed for a kind of conflict that was already obsolete by the time it flew. But as a research tool, it was priceless. The lessons learned from the Valkyrie's exotic materials, its advanced aerodynamics, and its complex systems pushed the boundaries of what was possible. The Valkyrie is more than just a museum piece. It's a symbol of a dream of ultimate speed and ultimate height. It is the story of America's Mach 3 nuclear dream, a white ghost from the future that briefly graced our skies and left an echo that still resonates in aviation history. The story of the XB-70 is a powerful reminder of how quickly technology and strategy can change, turning a dream machine into a museum piece overnight. What other incredible but canceled aircraft do you think deserve to have their story told? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this trip to the edge of space, make sure you subscribe for more stories from the history of aviation. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.